At it again. It's the Football Playbook with your boy RIC, the place to be. Ric Serritella. Tell it like it is when it comes to your first place Philadelphia Eagles, 11-1, getting set to take on the New York Football Giants, who come into town. In fact, the Eagles will travel up the Turnpike to the Meadowlands to take on the 7-4 New York Giants, and it's Giants week. So we just had a great guest, John Schmelk from Giants.com, and if you're fortunate enough to hang out in the media industry like myself over the last 2 decades, you get to meet a lot of talented, unique individuals. And our next guest is Patricia Traina, who has built a phenomenal audience with her Giants Country, now part of the Sports Illustrated platform. Good morning, Patricia. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
Hi, Rick. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm so happy to have you on my show, making the Football Playbook debut. And it's very early here for the Football Playbook birth. We're only 66 episodes into our new show here, but we can't thank you enough for your time today. I know you're a very busy person, and the New York Football Giants are playing lights out in terms of expectations. So I wanted to kind of get you on here, give us some great intel as we get previewed up for this Giants and Eagles affair. Always a fun divisional rivalry matchup. But let's first talk about the rivalry game from a week ago, because the Commanders and Giants game came to an end, and it just seemed like everybody was looking around like, hey, what just happened? Nobody likes to tie, right?
Yeah, it was a surprise. When they went into overtime, I remember leaning over to guy sitting next to me, a friend of mine. I said, I have a sick feeling this game's going to end in a tie, because I just got the feeling that really nobody wanted it. And there were opportunities for both teams to seize it, and it just wasn't there. And I said, just watch. Here it is. It's a critical NFC East game. The winner can firm up its hold on a playoff berth. The loser would have probably slipped down. And sure enough, here we are with a tie. And now the rematch becomes even more important, because the first tiebreaker, as you know, Rick, is head-to-head competition. And, it's going to be interesting, especially with the Seahawks breathing down the neck of everybody. I think the Seahawks are now the 7th seed. Washington has fallen out of the playoff race as of now. The Giants are clinging to that 6th spot, but do they have the quote unquote horses to cross the finish line? That's what we're going to find out over the next few weeks.
Well, that's what we're interested in finding out. That's why we have you here, Patricia. So with that being said, somewhat of a weird schedule year for the Giants. Like, they just played Washington for the first time last week for the first time. And now they're going to play the Eagles. We're in week 13 and they're playing the Eagles for the first time. So we really haven't gotten the true barometer test, I guess. But this NFC East is all, quote unquote, in the hunt. How do you kind of gauge the tail of the tape, considering that we didn't get clarity in terms of who's better, the Commanders or the Giants? I know the Giants have a tough schedule. How do you handicap the NFC East? How many teams ultimately get in, do you think?
I think it starts in the division, Rick. I mean, if you can't beat the teams in your division, that's not a good sign. And right now, I don't think the Giants have beaten any teams in the division. Granted, they played Dallas twice, Washington once. They're going to play the Eagles this weekend, a game that I'm not so sure they're going to be able to win. That's how that's how you gauge, just where the teams are. Now, as far as how many teams will make it into the to the playoffs, I have a feeling Philly's going to run away with it. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. I think Dallas has a pretty firm hold on a spot. I'm not convinced Washington is going to cross the finish line. I think Seattle might edge them out when all is said and done. And the Giants, like I said, I don't think the Giants have what they need to cross the finish line. They've been too banged up. The chemistry's been messed with. Now there's questions about the conservative play calling, which to me speaks volumes about, I think, what the coaches think about the talent that they have. And I just don't know that the Giants are going to, be able to cross the finish line. But that being said, I've always said that I didn't think this year the Giants were going to make the playoffs, even when they were starting off, 6-1, 7-2. I just didn't think that they had what they need. And I think they don't really, I think they know what their deficiencies are. And next year's going to be a whole nother story. But, obviously we're on this year. So.
Yeah, and I get a sense a little bit like it's almost of a feeling like they're playing with house money at this point. Like nobody expected them to even have a winning record. And here they are 3 games above 500 with 5 games left to play. But you mentioned the offensive play calling there. I saw you recently published an article about the run game woes. And you started off by saying we're going to find out if the Giants have the horses. Well, Saquan Barkley, last time I checked, is a workhorse running back. But in recent weeks, his yards per carry and production have seemed to fallen off, Patricia. What's going on?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a couple things, Rick. I go back a few years when the Giants had Odell Beckham Jr. as a receiver, and teams knew, you want to stop the Giants, you stop Odell. Well, here we are in 2022, and who is the offense for the Giants? It's Saquon. So teams know we want to stop the Giants, we've got to stop Saquon. And they have figured out how to do that. Now, part of the problem also is the injuries. The Giants, losing Daniel Bellinger, who just returned to the lineup last week, that was a big loss. I think there was like a 80-yard difference in the rushing game average with Bellinger in the lineup and without him. So that was significant. You look at the second level blocking by the Giants. It's just, they're ranked down, I think around 20, somewhere in the 20s, according to Football Outsiders. So, a combination of things. And then, the workload, just putting so much on Saquon, who has the shoulder and who at times, if you didn't know any better, you'd swear that he was trying to protect that shoulder. So it's just a mixture of things that I think have torpedoed the running game. And, the passing game, we always said that, it was going to take time for the passing game to come together. Well, then you go and you lose, Sterling Shepard early in the year. Kenny Golladay has been an absolute disaster. I mean, he's been worse than he was last year. And they trade away Kadarius Toney. Those were supposed to be their top 3 guys. So now they've got receivers who are at the top 3 that probably you can make a case would be 4, 5, 6, or practice squatters on other teams. So just a not a favorable situation, but kudos to the coaches for getting as much as they have out of this group.
No, it's amazing when you take a look at the wide receivers specifically. I mean, some of these guys might not even make 53-man rosters around the league. I mean, that's how far down in the depths at the wide receiver position they are. You mentioned, I got to put on my O face since you mentioned him, Odell Beckham Jr. He's making the rounds these days, and the Giants are one of those organizations that he reportedly has met with. And I find it fascinating from a couple different perspectives, Patricia, and you tell me how you feel. One, I find it intriguing that he wants a multi-year deal, but I think more fascinating is you're hearing reports that he doesn't want to actually work out for teams, yet he wants a multi-year deal. What is the Giants' fascination with OBJ? Because if I'm the Giants, to me, it's more of a next year move, and he will be, I think, 31 next year. I'm not so sure that it makes a lot of sense from a personnel standpoint, from a cap standpoint. But, I mean, what is the actual perception, do you think, in terms of OBJ? How realistic is it, and does it make sense to you?
I think it's the Giants doing due diligence. I think if Joe Shane, the general manager, didn't reach out and didn't initiate a conversation, he wouldn't be doing his job. You have to do your due diligence. Even if the guy might not be a fit or you can't afford him or whatever the case might be, you've got to at least, get with the other guy. You can't assume in this business. So I think that was the reason for having him in. Does he make sense for this team? Here's the problem, Rick. I mean, Odell has a history. And, when he was here in New York, when things went sour, he was a lightning rod for attention, the wrong kind of attention. Can they, count on him to finally have grown up? That's a big question. The other thing is, some people will look at Odell as a link to the past when you had the lean years. And this is a new regime. And if you're going to say, okay, well, this new regime has no connection to Saquon or to Daniel Jones or to any of the guys that were drafted by the previous regime, why would you want to go backwards? There's the money aspect of it. Now, next year, the Giants will be in better cap shape. They are going to, I'm pretty sure they're going to cut Kenny Golladay. I think he's going to be a post-June 1st transaction. But doesn't it make more sense if you're the Giants to get a younger receiver on a rookie deal, especially when you've got to address your quarterback situation, you've got to address Saquon. You're probably going to want to extend Dexter Lawrence, who's having a heck of a year. You're probably going to want to extend Andrew Thomas and keep those guys away from, even sniffing free agency. You're going to use that cap money up pretty quickly if you make those moves. So where exactly is the $20 million per year that Odell is reportedly looking to get going to come from when you have these other needs that you probably want to address before you even look at adding a free agent receiver? So realistically, I would be absolutely shocked if Odell is a Giant. I mean, you never say never, obviously, but when I go down the checklist of what makes sense and what doesn't, I just find so many things that don't make sense. And the fact that he wasn't able, that he hasn't worked out for any teams, any team that was going to sign him sight unseen without seeing him work out, that just wasn't going to happen. I think there was a report today that Jerry Jones is even hedging about, signing him, having him, since he hasn't worked out. So it is more of a next year move. I don't feel confident that the Giants are going to land him. I know Giant fans want him for nostalgic reasons, but Joe Schoen doesn't strike me as the type of guy who operates on nostalgia.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I wasn't aware at the annual salary that he's commanding at $20 million per year. I'd have to take a hard pass on OBJ. I mean, maybe $20 million for 2 years. I could maybe wrap my head around that one, but the Cowboys could be outbidding themselves there. I think this might be a little bit of an agent sham in terms of this fabricated market that is suddenly emerged for Odell Beckham Jr. We're talking to Patricia Traina, Giants Country. You see the sign there in the background, one of the longest running Giants sites for content and coverage out there. Make sure you check it out over at si.com/NFL/Giants. Patricia, Saquon Barkley is the face of the franchise. You mentioned Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have no allegiance or ties. They were not here when they drafted Saquon Barkley. There was a report I thought I saw last week, leaked, or maybe not leaked, that the Giants didn't really want to pay more than $12 million per year. Franchise running backs are getting paid, I think, more than that when you look around the league at Nick Chubb, for example. Where do you see this offseason negotiation going? What is the ballpark cap figure in your estimation? And how much do the Giants want Saquon Barkley back, do you think?
I think at this point, the Giants would definitely be open to have Saquon Barkley back. He has been a good player for them. He's their Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year nominee. So he's been great in the community, great locker room presence. He's a leader, a co-captain. That being said, I can't fathom him getting $16 million plus per year, which is, I think, what Christian McCaffrey's contract is currently paying him, for a few reasons. Number one, like I said, you've got other needs that you have to address. And running backs, you got to think that Joe Schoen is going to add receivers next year. You got to think that he's going to maybe look to add another receiving tight end, that he's going to beef up the playmakers. So it just, if Saquon was the only weapon that they had, I'd say, okay, I can see the argument. But here's the thing, with the salary cap, they can do some things to make Saquon happy. They can, fix it so that he has the most guaranteed money while still having a low APY, which is average per year salary. They can, put incentives, easily reachable incentives, likely to be earned incentives into his deal, which will boost up his contract value. They can give him roster bonuses. They can do all kinds of things that will give him the money that he's looking for, allegedly, reportedly, I should say, and I don't know exactly what he's looking for, but I've heard that that he wants to be paid on the scale of a Christian McCaffrey, like I said. So there are things they can do without killing their cap. Now, will they do those things? That remains to be seen. I think what's going to happen with Saquon is that's going to be a tough contract to negotiate. I could see the Giants having to use the franchise tag on him to keep him from getting out to free agency. I don't think they're going to get him done before the start of free agency. It would be a miracle. I think if the Giants want Daniel Jones back, that contract's going to be a lot easier to do, believe it or not, than Saquon. Saquon's is going to take a lot of cap gymnastics and stuff. But like I said, there are things that they can do to make him happy, to make it look like he's the highest paid without him actually being the highest paid.
No, that's some interesting perspective here from Patricia Traina. Since you mentioned Daniel Jones and you said it might be easier to get done, however, the market could be greater because there are so many quarterback needy teams, and New York did fail to or opted not to renew that 5th-year option. So I'm not sure the Giants even know today. They don't have to make this decision until 4 months from now. But what is your gut check feeling, Patricia, in terms of Daniel Jones? Will he be back? Will he get starter money? Will he find a team that offers him money that the Giants can't match? Where are you leaning towards right now?
I think he's back. I know some Giant fans don't want to hear that. They want somebody in the draft. I have a feeling he's back. And here's why I think he's going to be back. If you're Daniel Jones and you have a chance to finally play in the same system, a decent system, not the old Jason Garrett, outdated system, why wouldn't you, look to build on that? Especially if you know that your GM's going to get you better receivers and better, continue to build that offensive line and just fix things around them. So I think it would behoove Daniel Jones to come back to the Giants. Now, as far as money, I don't see him getting a blockbuster deal, along the lines of, say, a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes. That's not happening. What if I'm the Giants? What I do with Daniel Jones is I give him maybe a 3-year deal with an out after 2 years. I say to him, okay, look, you didn't have the weapons around you. There were injuries. We're going to give you another year, another 2 years to show us that you're a guy. Because, a lot of people right now, they forget there's always going to be quarterbacks available in the draft. People are acting like, oh my God, if you don't get a quarterback this year, you're not going to get a quarterback at all. The Giants right now, if they continue on the pace they're at, they're going to be drafting down in the 20s anyway. So how are you going to get a blue chip quarterback unless you mortgage all your draft picks? And now you've got other needs that you have to address, and it just doesn't make sense. So I think the Giants are going to stick with Daniel Jones, but it's not going to be a blockbuster deal. It's not going to be a long deal. It's going to be a deal that works for both sides. And like I said, I think Daniel Jones, it would behoove him to come back, get another year in this system, and just, firm up the belief that, whatever belief the team might have, that he can be the guy moving forward.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, they're going to both do some soul searching and realize that, you know what? It's the best situation for Daniel Jones, and it's the best situation for the Giants because, to your point, there's not going to be a rookie in the draft available where they're selecting. And the free agent, I mean, you're looking at Jimmy Garoppolo coming off a broken foot, Carson Wentz coming off of 3 teams in as many years, and that's the cream of the crop of the free agent class. So why not go with the guy that you've had somewhat proven success here in year 1? So let me ask you that next here, Patricia, in terms of this Eagles matchup. How do you handicap this game? I see the line moved up to 7 points now. The Eagles are favored by a touchdown. So do you think the Giants can keep this competitive and close at home against the 11-1 Eagles?
That's a tall order. I mean, the Eagles are stacked They are absolutely stacked. I mean, let's give credit where it's due. I know Giant fans are going to say, "Okay, turn in your Giant fan, your Giants membership card," which I don't carry, by the way. I'm at media. I'm trying to be objective here, but yeah, I think it's an uphill battle. But that said, I would like to see the Giants stand toe to toe with the Eagles. In other words, I don't want to see a blowout. I would like to see some competitive play. I would like to see them bounce back. I mean, look, the tying against the Commanders last week, I think, was deflating to the players. In the locker room, they acted like they just got their rear ends handed to them. They've got to shake that off and move forward. You know what I mean? So come out, have the energy, play it like it's your Super Bowl, and stand toe to toe. And you never know. At the end of the day, maybe something crazy happens. I mean, a few weeks ago, did anybody think Washington would beat the Eagles? I think they beat them at home, no less. So
Yeah.
you never know what's going to happen. But you look at the matchups though, and you say to yourself, it's not really favoring the Giants, but that's why you line up and you play the game every Sunday.
Well, and I think coaching and confidence has gone a long way with this Giants program. And, one thing we've seen, they don't have the same level of talent as the Eagles, but man, this team doesn't quit. They're in almost every game right up until the end. And I believe that's a characteristic that starts from the head coach in Brian Daboll. Last one here for you. Do you view him as a coach of the year candidate? I mean, Nick Sirianni is a candidate. Brian Daboll, I would believe, is in that mix. And I'm not sure those are the two front runners, I would think, up until this point. How much of a percentage do you give Daboll and taking home the hardware? If at least the Giants can have something to celebrate this year, right?
Yeah, I think you also have to put Robert Saleh in that group too. I mean,
Okay, fair enough.
I think he's done pretty good
Sure.
with all things considered with the
Good one.
Jets.
Yeah.
But the stats and I think the popular vote would probably go to Nick Sirianni, who, he's got that Eagle team playing like lights out. So let's call it for what it is. But you look at, Dable and even, to a degree, Saleh. Dable has done a lot with a lot less. Nobody expected this team to be where it's at with the number of wins that it has. Nobody expected them to be playing meaningful football at this stage of the game. Same thing, you can make the argument with the Jets, especially now that Saleh made the switch at quarterback to Mike White. So if it were my vote, no disrespect to Nick Sirianni, he has a loaded roster. Howie Roseman did a great job putting that roster together. I tend to go for the guys that are, that do more with less. So I think it could come down to Dable and Saleh. I would give the nod to Dable probably, but I think realistically Sirianni is probably going to walk away with that award.
Makes sense. I would lean towards Daboll over Saleh strictly based on the fact that this is his first year, Brian Daboll. Saleh has had 2 or 3 years, and Daboll, it seems like, is at the same or even surpassed the Jets in terms of progress. We're running out of time here, Patricia. I can't thank you enough for popping on and chopping it up with us. Again, Giants Country over on SI.com. I know you've had a lot of great content flowing over there. We mentioned the run game woes. You did an article on that. I see some young whippersnappers there on the Giants defense were outspoken about their playing time. We didn't get a chance to get into that, but tell our great listening audience at home all the great content you have on deck, what will be coming out, where they can find it, where they can follow you. And our chat room really enjoyed this conversation. So again, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate, always loved coming on and talking football with you on or off the air.
Absolutely.
You can find my work on giantscountry.com. Also, I'm the host of the Locked On Giants podcast. 5 days a week, we do a show. So you'll want to check that out. I do have a YouTube channel. It's the Locked On Giants podcast on YouTube. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts on the various audio platforms. Giants Country, we're just going to keep, covering Philly week. And I'm going to start an analysis probably this afternoon. I have an analysis that I want to really get into regarding the Giants offense and the woes that they've had. And I'm going to try and dig as deep as I can to uncover some of the data and whatnot and where they go from here. So just some of the things that I have coming up. That's a big project. Eventually, I'm going to try and tackle some contract projections for Saquon and Daniel Jones and some of these other guys. And just, going to keep chopping away every day. We publish every day over on Giants Country. So please come check us out if you're a Giant fan or if you just want to find out what's going on with the Giants.
No, appreciate the grind and the dedication to the craft, Patricia. And I know you will be on it. And I always enjoy your salary cap perspective. I think you're as good as it gets in the business when it comes to that stuff. How many years have you been doing the Giants Country now?
Giants Country, I want to say about 4 or 5 years now, but I've been covering the Giants. I go back to the Jim Fossil era. So over 30. And the other thing that's on my wall, you can see behind me, that's my book cover. I put out a book a couple years ago, The Big 50 Men and Moments That Made the New York Giants. So I'm kind of officially now a Giant historian.
Yes, you are.
Been around a long time. So and I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah, 3 decades will get you that status. Absolutely. And we hope to have you back here on the Football Playbook. And I can't wait to be popping on the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm sure we'll get into it, especially come draft season, which again, Locked On Giants Country does a great job. So thank you so much, Patricia. I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Rick, and happy holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays.